Can you talk us through how the last week's been for you?
Yeah, interesting watching the media and the fallout and the attacks on the club. I have a question for you, Charles. On your live show last week, you had Andy Walker on live saying that our winter training camp was a jolly. Can you explain to me what he meant by that?
I can't explain that.
Why not?
That would be probably words that Andy would probably want to discuss with you. I wasn't involved with that live.
You can't go on a public platform and spread lies and insults about my professionalism, my players' professionalism. 70-80% of the group are teetotal. And you know the inference and the innuendo that he's meaning, Charles. A jolly is like, it's not a stag do. It wasn't 1830, even though it's been portrayed like that. We went out there with the best intentions. The lads had one day off. They got into Dubai at 7 a.m. and they're entitled to a bit of downtime. It's not as if they were doing a conga in a dressing room, dancing the baccarat, or travelling up and down a train journey from London to Glasgow with COVID. So I think we've been harshly treated. I want to apologise to our supporters for the fallout. It shouldn't be Peter that had to do it. It should have been me. It was my decision, along with the backroom team and medical staff, sports science, to go with the best intentions for the benefit of the team going forward for the second half of the season. Unfortunately, it's not worked out that way. We've had one positive test, but that shows that our protocols were very good out of a group of 60-odd people. So I think the fallout from this has been, way too much and a bit of bullying going on, and we've been held to a far higher standard than any other club. What I want, Charles, from you is to go and speak to Andy and for Andy to apologise because he was demanding apologies from the club. I want an apology from Andy because he has questioned my professional integrity, my players' professional integrity, and to use the word or the term jolly is quite crass and arrogant. He accused the club of being arrogant last week. We weren't. No intention of being arrogant or rubbing it in anybody's faces. We're out there to, do a good week's work and get a volume of work that we wouldn't have got here back in Scotland. So until then, you'll not be getting anything from me or my players.
What I would say, just in response to that, is having been out there and covered your training camp there last year, I could certainly say that I know how hard the players have worked and how hard you worked when you were out there. So I can't speak for Andy. What I would ask, though...
who's Andy speaking for, then?
Well, does he
speak for Celtic support? Is he all of a sudden a man of the people?
No, not at all.
Challenging the club's social ethos? Andy's been in the game here for 20, 30 years. He's made no contribution to Celtic whatsoever. So I'm not sure he's in a position... He stood up there as if he's been a Celtic legend and a stalwart of the club, putting the boot into me, the club, and everybody else involved. And I think he's totally out of order.
Well,
Who is he speaking for, Charles?
He's not speaking certainly for Sky Sports. He's speaking from his point of view as a pundit. He's entitled to his opinion. I think you would appreciate he's entitled to his opinion. I mean, I'm here.
Well, his opinion's false and it's insulting.
Well, that's absolutely, you're entitled to that as well. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm here representing Sky to ask questions ahead of the game. And what I would say is, since we last spoke to you, which was after the Old Firm game, there's a lot of stuff that's going on, which you've just partly detailed that in the last minute or so. As you said, Peter apologised on behalf of the club last week, and you said that you felt that you should have been in the position to do that yourself. When you look back over the last fortnight or so, do you feel that this has been a point whereby the issues on the pitch have kind of been forgotten about with regards to, the stuff that's gone off the pitch taking the headlines? I mean, obviously, you had a couple of draws, you lost the game to Rangers. Do you feel that all the on-field stuff has been forgotten about and has been overshadowed by the stuff that's been going on off the field? Yeah,
there seems to be some sort of agenda being driven here. We played very well at Ibrox and we didn't deserve to lose the game. We were a better team. We've come back. We've been absolutely decimated by these rules. Not convinced they're a public health issue. Seems political, in my opinion. Nobody has got COVID. Our protocols were perfect. So we've been decimated the last two games. Players have done all they can. The ones that were left behind to play the games could have played a little bit better in both the games. But considering some of them hadn't played for a year and with some young boys out there doing a man's job, to come away with two points, we suppose we'll have to take that. We're very motivated. It's great to see all the players back. So we want to go on a run now and start putting in the performances that we were putting in towards the end of December.
Do you still feel you have a chance of turning this situation round on the pitch?
Of course.
Yeah.
Listen, the league may be beyond us, but we'll not stop trying. So, well, what we have to do is start winning games on a consistent and regular basis. And, the players have proved they can do that.
All the guys who were self-isolating, are they all back for Wednesday?
Yes.
Has everybody been tested?
Yeah, we've all been tested rigorously. I think I've been tested 5 or 6 times myself. So we were tested again today. We get the results back later on, but from the lateral flow test this morning, everybody's negative.
How did you manage to keep in contact with that group of players during the last week or so?
Just by technology, Zoom. We had, cameras at the game, obviously at the stadium, and cameras in the dressing room as well.
I mean, you says it should have been you who apologised for the trip to Dubai. I know you've obviously made your feelings clear about how you thought it was represented.
Yes.
But do you still think it's worth an apology for what happened?
Yes, because
from yourself.
Listen, end of the day, we've gone out there with the best intentions, professional, just like other clubs are doing at the minute. Actually, we were out there and speaking to the manager of the training complex, and he was saying, look, if there's a circuit break in England, we've had some inquiries from English clubs as well. British Athletics were out there, so Zenit St. Petersburg are out there now. It wasn't just exclusive to Celtic going out there. Other clubs use the facility because it's world class. I do regret that we have to have lost 13 players and 3 very important members of staff, but that was something out of our control, obviously.
Neil, can I ask you, was there right up until the last minute a doubt in your mind or a word from someone within Celtic to say, look, we understand we're following all the protocols, we understand we've got permission, but this might be morally wrong given the circumstances of what was going on in the country?
No.
Did you think of anything in your mind that you thought maybe this is not a good idea?
I was just hoping that, we'd go out there, get away from the pressure a little bit, get some warm weather, train, get them refreshed like we have done for many, many times before, and get a positive impact when we come back. Always in the back of your mind, you're worried that, somebody might pick it up, but you don't imagine that you'd have to lose 13 players and 3 staff because one player has picked it up somewhere.
When you come back and then the whole thing explodes, in the aftermath of that, with these 2 games, do you feel as if in some ways not only has it created this madness, but it's also hampered maybe your chances of sitting down with Peter and saying, look, I've managed to turn this around. Prior to it, there was good performances. It's already stated you're going to have a sit down with Peter and review your situation. Do you feel as if that has really kind of hampered, the positivity that might have been around you to turn it around?
No, I don't think it's hampered my position. I've had chats with Peter on a daily basis. We feel that we've been held to a higher standard than any other club. There's outbreaks all over the country. Austin Villa have shut down, Wraith Rovers. They haven't travelled anywhere. So we could have easily stayed here and maybe had an outbreak, but because our protocols are so good, we've been able to quell that. In terms of the trip itself, we felt really good on the way back. We felt we had a great week, quality of work, physical and mentally really good coming back and looking forward to the second half of the season. But, this thing is sort of taken off and we've been shot at from all sides. Rightly or wrongly, you all have your own opinions, morally or professionally. But my intention from November, when this was first mooted, was it was to be the best thing to do at the time.
Just 2 quick points before I finish then. You mentioned there you felt as if it was more politically motivated than
I'm not getting into a fight with the government, Pete, but I think I'll just leave it out there. Sorry, just to clarify, Ian just told me there that we've had one other person who's been deemed positive. So we've had 2 out of the whole 60.
Do you know who that was, Neil?
I do, yeah, but the person would rather, remain private for now.
Just that other point that I was making, obviously you don't want to get drawn into a battle with the government. On your own personal situation, you said you've had discussions with Peter. You know what this city is like and the madness that surrounds all the speculation with potentially, and just that hint that you said that the league could be beyond you. Do you feel as if Peter has said to you, yep, you're the man to take us right to the end of the season, regardless of what happens?
No, he's not said that, no. But he hasn't said anything otherwise either. And I don't think he needs to. So my job is to carry on and, get the best out of the team. And, it was only a month ago we won a treble. A month. And now, there's a bloodlust out there for me to lose my job. And there has been for quite a while. But that's sort of the nature of, being a football manager in this day and age.
Neil, can I just clarify? Is it a player and other players tested positive, did you say?
Yes.
You've talked today about the protocols being perfect. Would you concede that they weren't all perfect, in particular around the poolside and in the bar? Are you able to explain those situations? Yeah,
we're in our bubble. The players were sitting in a bar. For me, they weren't on top of one another. We were outside in our bubble having a beer for half an hour. This has been made out to be something that it's not. And like I said, we weren't doing a conga, 20-man conga, which is lauded by all and sundry because Scotland qualified for the Euros. Our players weren't behaving like that at all. And like I say, 80% of them are teetotal. So for anyone to call it a jolly is totally disrespectful to their professionalism and the way they conduct themselves as men.
Would you accept?
For me, there was nothing wrong with the photographs. And by the way, it's illegal to take photographs in Dubai without someone's consent. But however, we weren't hiding anything. We weren't up to anything. We were out there sitting there on our day off, having travelled all through the night, which again is our problem, not anybody else's. But it was impossible to do any training the next day. So they were given some downtime like we all were. And this has been a stick to beat us with, these photographs, and it's completely preposterous.
I think there should have been 2 metre social distancing. You were just saying that all of your protocols have been perfect. I think John Kennedy referred to slip-ups. Would you accept that not everything was perfect and that there are things for which
not everything
you've got regret?
Not everything was perfect. But you show me anyone who is doing the right things. So, for example, when we played Hibs, we had to bus 6 players in 2 buses because we were told now that that's the way it has to be. 3 people on a 52-seater bus. That's not been going on throughout the season. We've been going to away grounds where we're cramped in like sardines, Boxing Day at Hamilton. There's no social distancing there, no physical distancing. So it's inconsistent. Protocols of different clubs are inconsistent. Go to St Johnstone, all crammed into a little dressing room, inconsistent. But as soon as Celtic are deemed to do something wrong, bang, you're all wanting blood. It's absolutely scandalous.
It's not so much a bloodlust, I don't think. Well, certainly in certain quarters, it's more.
What's your opinion, Carradine? Not from where I'm sitting.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. My point is that the chief executive of the football club has already apologised, and you've said that apology was warranted and it should have come from you. So in terms of that apology, clearly there's been a colossal error of judgment somewhere along the lines.
I'm only apologising. I'm apologising because, unfortunately, we had one player pick it up. Again, we'll have to look at that and see what happened. My apologies to the fans because 13 players and 3 staff had to isolate for 10 days, which is ludicrous. I'm not apologising for anything else. I'm not apologising for going out there and training for a week. I'm not apologising for the players having a day off.
Is there an apology due to a wider section than just the club's fans?
To who?
To other clubs, to the population at large that had to stay behind here, to any reputational damage that's done to the game, maybe in the eyes of the government?
What reputational damage has it done, Carradine? Compared to Raith Rovers, compared to Hamilton, compared to Kilmarnock, compared to Motherwell, compared to Aberdeen? What reputational damage has it done?
Well, we had the First Minister and our Deputy saying that the trip shouldn't have happened and that the game was already on its why didn't
they stop us from going then? We flew out on the Saturday. The country went into full lockdown on the Monday. You can't tell me the government didn't know that we were going into full lockdown before we flew out on the Saturday.
But there would be also a decision for the club to make. Is it worth it? Is the risk going to outweigh the reward?
Yeah, that's all right in hindsight, Carradine, but at the time we felt it was worth it. You're sitting there pontificating to me like the rest of you all are about the hindsight's a wonderful thing. We did everything we possibly could to avoid the damage, but like I said, we've been held to a higher standard. There's no leniency at all, and We sent pictures of the plane. We sent pictures of the bus. Everything, social distancing. It seems it wasn't good enough for some government officials.
And in terms of the review, where is that process, the review of your position? Has that happened? Is it still to happen?
You need to ask the board that.
So as far as you're concerned, it's business as usual. There were some reports that the review had happened, that you were basically to continue to the end of the season, if I remember correctly.
Well, that's great news for me then, isn't it?
That's not correct. You've not heard that.
No.
Neil, the positive test that's taken place there, is it from one of the 13 who were self-isolating, or is it from one of the other players? Do you know that at the moment?
No, it's from somebody who was self-isolating.
Neil, can I check? You're saying about the 13 players that you've been missing. Are you disputing that you should have been without that many players? Do you think it's been like to an extreme?
Yes.
Where you, right. Okay. So what's going on there then?
Well, on the plane, they were saying, you have to isolate if you were 2 seats forward or 2 seats back, which, wasn't the case. We were told it was 2 meters.
So you're questioning the amount of players that you're told that had to self-isolate as being inaccurate?
I'm not saying that. I disagree with it. And I'm not convinced that that's what we were led to believe. And on the buses, the way we've been travelling and where every team's been travelling up and down the country. Now, the way the government has set out the protocol since we've come back, you could only have 3 on a bus out of a 52-seater. So I'm telling you, we played Hibs. We had 6 players who couldn't drive. So we had to bus them. We couldn't put all 6 on one bus. We had to get 2 buses to take 6 players. So that would have meant in Dubai, we would have needed 20 buses. If that's the case, every team in the country is breaking the protocols.
To use the football analogy, Neil, what are you saying then is you feel as if the goalposts were moved from
100%, Peter.
Is there a real issue with the guidelines, Neil, in terms of, them hard for being clubs to follow?
Well, we followed the protocols and it's completely backfired on us. We've been totally punished for following the protocols. So for me, they're a complete waste of time. And
from this new positive case, is there no worry that anyone else will need to self-isolate as a result of that one?
I don't know what you want me to say. Everybody's negative. The whole squad's negative, bar 2 players. I think that's remarkable. And I think it totally blows out of the water the way the trip, the way the training camp has been portrayed by certain quarters of the media, by certain pundits, and by certain government officials as well. We did not abuse any privilege. We did the right things. We were absolutely, totally professional. We had a little drink in the afternoon on a day off, completely allowed, no law breaking. Yet no, we come back to this barrage of absolute hypocrisy.
Neil,